Hey folks, I wanted to take some time and introduce myself and explain what Gray Ribbon Adventures is all about. I'm Casey Arnold, and Gray Ribbon Adventures was born kind of from a lack of support, if you will. Now, those of you that know the story I'm about to share, please don't take offense at that. I'm talking about a very specific type of support. For those of you new to our story, well, it goes a little something like this. My wife, April, and I have been together since she was 13 and I was 14. Let's just say it's been a few decades at this point. After graduating from Penn State, we relocated to Virginia, ultimately settling in Front Royal, about 70 miles west of D.C. It's actually the gateway to the Blue Ridge Mountains. She's not just my wife, but my best friend and partner in everything. You see, we would hike, mountain bike, ski, snowboard, and paddle together, oftentimes with one or more of the multitude of dogs we've had over the years. She was also the perfect pillion on the motorcycle, always excited to go for a ride. Though some of those hobbies ended a number of years ago for various reasons, it's safe to say we enjoyed being outside as much as possible. Well, on June 8th, 2019, our entire world just stopped. So June 8th. I was excited to start our first weekend with our goddaughter, Emily. She had come down to stay with us. And as I walked in from the gym, from working out that morning, and asked April, I said, "Hey, how was your night with them last night?" They stayed up late in the game room and everything and slept in there. And all I got in the answer was gibberish. And I mean, we've all had a night like that, right? But when I looked at her, I was like, "You good?" And it's like she had help tattooed across her forehead. Shit. She's having a stroke. She must be, right? So I put her through a quick stroke protocol, and she did fine. Nothing was uneven. And she was able to get dressed, rushed her to the ER. I made a 15-minute drive in 10, and by the time I got there, her entire right side was tonic. And I burst in shouting, just busted in front of the line. I said, "Hey, my wife's having a stroke," out the parking lot. And before I could even get out there to show them where the car was, they had her on a gurney. And she wasn't having a stroke, she was having a seizure. And before they could get any meds into her, she went full tonic-clonic. And let me tell you something, folks. I've watched folks bleed. I've watched folks die. I slept fine. When the love of your life is literally turning blue in front of you and you have to roll her onto her side with the doc, I went numb, and it still haunts me. Once she came back, a CT scan showed a shadow on her brain. We didn't have an MRI at the local hospital at the time. So what did I say again? Like, shit. I watched them haul her off in an ambulance to the larger regional hospital and everything where she could get MRI. I rushed home to pick up Emily and bring her to the hospital because her mom was already on her way down to meet her. And that MRI caused a small pit in my stomach to become a wide open chasm because it revealed an egg-sized tumor on her left frontal lobe. So my wife is a brain cancer survivor. So I mentioned support earlier, and we had support. Still have support. My baby brother-in-law, Mark, was on the road within minutes when I called him. The doors had barely been open for visitors in the morning, and a really close brother of mine was already there, and more support came in through the day and the next. Mark was on the phone endlessly with the woman who ultimately became our lifeline and a sister of ours. She has familial ties to the UPMC, University of Pittsburgh Medical Center community, and was arranging the most rapid and complete care I think anybody's ever received. So I know you're going to watch this. Thank you, Jen. We wouldn't be here without you. April had mostly recovered. She was still having some micro seizures and everything that would interrupt her speech. Once those were under control, she was discharged, and I immediately headed up to Pittsburgh. Our families and everything are from Pittsburgh. It's where we're from, so we had support there. Battery of tests said she had a low-grade glioma, and the prognosis was as good as you can hope with brain cancer. Surgery date was set, and we went home. She went back to work. I went back to work, and I put on a mask around her and would just let inarticulate rage fly when I wasn't around her. I should note here the entire time she was just a badass. Now, let me give you a level of badassery for a bit of context. So 20 days before her seizure, she was huffing and puffing up Heartbreak Hill in Anniston, Alabama with me at the US Canine Biathlon, formerly US Canine Biathlon, on our wedding anniversary, no less. And some folks go to Cabo, we go get muddy with our dogs. She did this with a brain tumor, folks. And 3 days before her surgery, she's doing a bone frog obstacle course race in Maryland with a heat index of 115 degrees with 12 of our most amazing friends. And we did that because we weren't sure if she'd ever be able to do another one. Now, that whole turning blue thing, and as awful as that was, I'll tell you what, the most horrible time in my life ever was when they wheeled her into surgery on that gurney, and she went out those doors, and I never knew if I'd see her again. Fortunately, she was in arguably the most capable hands on the planet with her particular tumor, Dr. Homuncular. Doc, if you ever see this, brother, we love you. All of these adventures, all of any of this is because of you. Our unprecedented support from family and friends continued 24/7 while I pretty much lived in the ICU for 5 days. And then throughout her inpatient rehab and recovery, she stayed in Pittsburgh. I had to return to Virginia, got to work, got to take care of the dogs in the house. And she was gone for weeks, ultimately months, with her radiation treatment and everything. And each time I visited, she was stronger and in great spirits. And even after radiation that just wrecked her, her spirit just couldn't be broken. In the interest of time and my mental health, I'm skipping over lots of downs that accompanied these ups. There were plenty of downs. But on October 14th, I finally got to bring her home for good. She still had chemo to go through. Fortunately, she just took pills, didn't have to get intravenous, and it didn't destroy her. So I did want to share one story. It was 2 days after her surgery. Her surgery was July 23rd, 2019. And morning of the 25th, I'd walk into ICU, and I walk to her room, and it's empty. Her bed is made, she's gone. And I kind of freaked out a little bit. Ran up to the nurse's station, and she just kind of smiled and pointed down the hall, and I turned and looked. And not 2 days after brain surgery, there she is,
great baby,
with assistance from the therapist and everything, walking down the hall with the biggest shit-eating grin I've ever seen. And I kind of knew at that point things were going to be okay, despite a number of setbacks that occurred before she even got out of ICU. To kind of give that a little levity, she still wasn't able to talk at that point. She didn't say her first word until the third day, and it was extremely limited what she could do because she had severe aphasia, especially where the operation was. But once she could talk, she tended to just repeat herself because that's all she could say. The thing that haunted me for days on end was her just saying, "I'm trapped in my own body," over and over again, because that's all she could say. Well, she's no longer trapped. Fortunately, that was a short blip on the radar, but it was a heavy one, and it's something that I still grapple with. Even if she may have forgotten it, I haven't. But yeah. Anyway, better things. Now, after all that, here's where the mission of Gray Ribbon Adventures comes in. I didn't bring the girl I married home. The girl I married was gone with the tumor. And the only people who can truly understand are folks that are in similar situations, whether or a close second would be spouses and partners that have had severe TBIs, particularly ones affecting the frontal lobe. So her sense of humor had changed. The aphasia, difficulty speaking, is nerve-wracking. It still is. Long-term memory was intact. Short-term memory was, wait, what? Not a thing. Social mannerisms are different. The elation of having my baby back had this cloud over it. We adjusted, and we had to. And then just as she was beginning to go back to work, the pandemic hit. Suddenly we found ourselves with a lot of time on our hands. She was immediately sent home, and I was sent home from my contract, ultimately for 4 months for me, while she stayed home 13 months. Thank you, U.S. government, for that one thing. This time turned out to be critical in her healing. We spent almost every waking moment outside. She was taking her chemo, but we were hiking, taking short backpacking trips, seemingly constantly. And it was during this time of healing and this time at home, we discovered Expedition Overland. We discovered Lifestyle Overland. We discovered overlanding. And we're like, damn, that looks cool. And just like that, because I can't just try anything, we had a rooftop tent on a trailer to tow behind our Forester, and then I bought a Sequoia and fully built a Sequoia, and now we have this insane Ram Power Wagon behind me. So needless to say, it was the impetus that got us into this. So she tried to get back on the mountain bike. Her balance never fully returned. Self-confidence took a hit every time she fell over, and that was often. So we sold the bikes. Left us with hiking and camping. Overlanding only expanded the range where we could hike and camp, and where, her legs could only hump it back so far. So it gave her a chance to access nature that otherwise she'd never have seen. I'd never have seen. And it boosted her confidence every time she got behind the wheel. So it was ideal. Despite these new adventures, though, there was still a problem. That lack of support. Peer support. You see, there's actually support networks out there for young brain cancer survivors and loved ones that cap at around 30 years old. There are tons of support networks, obviously, out there for the caregivers of elderly patients. and those widowed from cancer. And what about those of us, though, that are middle-aged, hurts to say, professionals whose lives have been completely flipped upside down because they've spent a lifetime with a person that now suddenly they don't completely recognize? In the end, I hope that sharing April's story, my story, our story, will reach those in our shoes. Those that live daily struggle of healing it from mind-altering surgery and disease, whose relationship has been forever affected through no fault of either party. I want to share how nature can play an absolutely amazing part in that healing. Shared adventure, new experiences, new skills can not only remap those synapses, but reconnect you to the one that you pledged your love to. It's not all roses, but it's not all thorns. So I understand this has all been a bit heavy, but I wanted everyone to be on the same page here. If you're in the same boat as I am, or you can relate, I truly, truly hope you benefit from what we'll share throughout this project. And please don't hesitate to reach out. Our hope is to begin to build a community, as it can get really lonely at times. Thank you for all your support over the years, particularly those that encouraged me with my writing and storytelling, because honestly that's what finally pushed me over the edge to start doing this and recording and sharing our adventures and story and struggles. So now it's adventure time, so we'll see you out there.